Hello. Well, if you're interested in Bitcoin SV, last week was a busy one. The CoinGeek conference in New York offered 3 days of talks, panels and chat about every aspect of BSV. There was an audience there, watching in person, but many more like me watching online. Well, today I'm joined by two other online viewers to discuss what we learnt from CoinGeek New York and what we liked and didn't like. So I'm delighted to welcome the two founding members of the Women of BSV group, Ruth Heisman. Hi, Ruth.
Hiya.
And Diddy Weldon. Hello, Diddy.
Nice to meet you, Charles.
You're listening to CGConversations with Charles Miller.
So, New York, 3 days. We were all sitting in the UK watching. What was your overall impression, Diddy?
Okay, so my overall impression of the CoinGeek conferences is that they are very well organised, very well put together. The production of them is astounding, but the actual quality of the speakers and the panelists is phenomenal. Some of the people that were actually talking and discussing the future developments that are coming was astounding.
How did you enjoy your 3 days of sitting in front of the computer, Ruth?
Oh, I loved it. I always love it. I had a blast. But you see, I try and work whilst I'm watching it, which is a bit of a death blow, really, to necessarily taking everything in, because it's our busiest time of year at the minute, so I can't afford not to work. But I absolutely love it. And is it just me, or is it getting longer each time? It's like 3 days of, what was it, like 8 hours a day or something? It's a lot to take in.
I mean, I think it has been 3 days before, but I think the sessions are sort of shorter. So it feels like you're getting more value for money, I suppose, or value for the time that you put in. But
it's back to back, and it's very intense. There were things that really leapt out at me, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute. But all of it massively high quality as always, and just going so deep with everything. I think that's something you don't see at other conferences in the crypto space at all, is that they don't get into the nuts and bolts like we do in the BSV conferences, and that is a real education, the whole thing.
It's also nice that you have the break with the CoinGeek TV. So the guys from, the journalists from CoinGeek are there actually with the CoinGeek TV section, and those little sections were really nice as well to break up that, just when everybody's off and doing other things. So, that again is top quality production as well.
Well, let's look at it from the point of view of the world of BSV. What do you think would be, if you were writing a report about it, what would be the headline that came out of it that was a piece of news, that stuff that we didn't perhaps know about before the conference? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Can I say?
Go on.
I would say onboarding problem solved.
In what way?
I thought Pearsend was just amazing.
Right. For anyone who missed that presentation, Jeff Beck is his name, and he's got a system which is a Chrome extension where he can kind of superimpose a payment mechanism on existing websites like Twitter, and so that you can send money to people on Twitter. In fact, people who haven't even got wallets, which is rather amazing.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
A feature.
And
Great.
Onboarding them via Paymails and Handcash is exactly right, as far as I'm concerned, because it can appeal to anybody. Then, your parents, your brother-in-law, whoever, and you can also target people who have got lots of followers, who you'd like to see get some BSV and understand a bit more about BSV. And it's all wrapped up beautifully in this, share email and the notification. And just to top it all off, if they ignore it and they don't understand it, then the money gets returned to your wallet. So there's no risk involved.
It's a Chrome extension, so it actually works with Amazon as well. which, I mean, that is a great concept as well, to be able to have it not just for Twitter to be able to onboard people, but also the fact that you can actually spend this on Amazon, and that means you can actually buy nearly everything that you would ever need.
I think that functionality is coming, Diddy. I'm not sure it was absolutely there yet, but I mean, I can't remember the screenshot, but he had maybe 9 different buttons or 12 different buttons with all different functionality on that he was talking about. And there were things like adding them to, say, WordPress or something, so you can make it so that your blog is now paid for. I think there was an Ask Me Anything button, so you could make it so that people would pay to interact with you online, to answer questions, perhaps. I mean, for anybody who's an influencer online, this would be
phenomenal.
A huge, because then now they don't have to write apps that do these things. They don't have to change the tools they're using. They don't have to get out of their comfort zone. They can just build this into whatever they're currently using, and onboard people at the same time.
It is a great idea, going back to the Twitter version of it, that a person who has never heard of BSV receives a message on Twitter saying so-and-so has sent you $5 or whatever it is. And in order to collect it, go here and download, get your Handcash wallet, and then you will receive this money. Well, that's all very well, but it does require generosity on the people who've already got BSV to be doing this marketing operation that is going to bring these people on board. I'm not sure. I mean, are there?
I think that's the problem, though, Charles. I don't think that's the problem. I mean, we've all been pinging people money for years now, and enjoying it. I don't have an issue with that. I think if you thought that spending $1 on somebody was going to get them to educate themselves about BSV, you'd do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a no-brainer.
That's all very well for the tens of thousands or the hundreds of thousands even of people who are really interested in BSV. But is that going to get from, 100 million people to 1 billion people just because people are so keen that other people know about this thing?
Am I right in thinking that Elon Musk, when he started PayPal, they were actually giving away money, and that was how they were onboarding people?
Quite possible.
Right. So this model does actually work, I think. I mean, it causes them a problem eventually when they're a victim of their own success. But, the way I think about it is I feel like people need to see Pearsend and the little lightning logo maybe 7 or 8 times before they actually click on it and treat it like it goes into their brain as something that, oh, this is a real thing now, and I can trust this enough to click on this and read about it. So I think just smattering the internet with these notifications itself is going to be absolutely huge. I mean, that's guerrilla marketing 101, isn't it? The idea of being able to, buy through Amazon without necessarily having to hand over all your details or be logged into Amazon.
Absolutely.
If you can make that work, that's crazy. I mean, this is reinventing the internet all over again. I mean, the companies themselves probably won't be very happy. And I dare say Jack is probably not thrilled about this development on Twitter.
I wonder whether Twitter or Amazon or any of these other big businesses will have some way of putting a stop to this if they don't think it's in their interest.
I'm sure they'll try. We'll have to see how it goes.
Let's move on to, I don't know whether you came across Ty Everett and his Project Babbage.
Yes. I loved it. I tweeted about it, actually. I was so impressed.
What did you see that, Diddy?
Yeah, I've actually watched a couple of Ty's videos as well on YouTube. So I'm really impressed with Ty, especially, because he said he is partially sighted as well. And everything that he's actually achieved is phenomenal. Again, it's one of my favourite words at the moment, phenomenal. But yeah, I'm really impressed with Babbage as well.
Just going back to the question of onboarding, that also brings to mind the session on the first day of this group of people whose gaming projects are linked to Handcash, built by gamers, Unbounded and Haste as well. Particularly the built by gamers, which is an existing business of esports, I thought was a pretty impressive idea about how people in that world are going to be brought into having hand cash wallets.
To onboard gamers is probably about the most effective approach we could have right now.
I mean, I know that because Jackson Lexi was part of that group as well, and obviously Jiro Dogs and then Hash Wars. But there was a part where I'm sure Jackson was saying that, you know, if you're a sound engineer as well, because obviously it's very difficult to get work in certain areas, and if you're a sound engineer, then you can sell your sounds within the games, you know, like a woof for a dog or a bark, or, you know, and these things are, you know, that would then become an NFT in the game that can be sold on and sold on and sold on. So it opens up a real, like, for musicians who have had quite a hard time recently of not being able to gig and everything for the last couple of, you know, the last 12 months or so, it gives, at least there is something else out there that actually is really tangible to be able to help you make a living in that respect. So I was really impressed with that. But I'm impressed with Jackson anyway, because I've had a really good conversation with Jackson. But yeah, I mean, I seem to remember the figure of 10 million gamers being something that was mentioned as well. And when we get 10 million gamers onboarded, then, I mean, you know, adoption and the onboarding process is going to be set. Each one of those tells somebody else, and then that's one other person.
Well, it's interesting that in Calvin Ayre's little introduction to the whole conference, he made a big point of, he's been in the world of online gaming and gambling businesses before he was involved with Bitcoin at all. And he said that he always thought that this was going to be an area that would be just perfect for Bitcoin, and that finally it seems to be coming about. I mean, I'm just wondering whether you, because there are these different sectors. There's the idea that possibly Bitcoin is going to just be completely behind the scenes, and big supply chain companies that we've never heard of will be the ones who really start using it in a big way. Or is it consumers, the proverbial cup of coffee being bought with your phone or whatever? Or maybe it is gamers. I mean, what is if you're optimistic about Bitcoin SV, where do you think the real mass breakthrough is going to be seen first?
Gambling. I mean, obviously that's what Kelly, but I come from, I love horses, so I'm really into horse racing and the oracles that they used to use. And I was asking Joelle a while ago when we went to a London meetup about, you know, the system itself would be absolutely perfect for dog racing and horse racing, and the gambling, you know, that kind of sector, especially you've got Sky Bets, you've got Paddy Power, you've got Ladbrokes, and all of these different kind of entities that, and I mean, I don't know if you realise, but it is a massive industry.
But I mean, I think gaming as well, I think it's going to be absolutely huge. I mean, especially when it was like an NFT conference, wasn't it, for the first day or two? When you think about all the in-game assets and, you know, ways to reward people with tokens as well. I mean, it's sort of vast and mind-blowing, and I don't think we've really got to grips with what it's going to be yet.
Maybe the future is a little, or even the present day version of the future is a little daunting. But so let's look backwards. And I'm thinking of the session about the two academics who they worked for Belcore, who wrote some papers that were cited in the white paper. That's Scott Stornetta and Stuart Haber, who sat with Craig Wright and Ian Grigg remotely to discuss the deep origins of the ideas in the white paper and the ideas behind Bitcoin. Did you see that? What did you make of that?
Yeah,
I did see it. I was blown away. I thought it was amazing.
I didn't actually know that piece of history about timestamping or about the blockchain, and I'm actually flabbergasted on the fact that, you know, this was back in the 90s, and for accounting purposes, why haven't we been using this system, you know, way before now? It seems such a long time to have got to this point. But I was like, it was a real history lesson for me. So
yeah, it was
great. And he showed his little New York Times advert and everything. So yeah, I mean that filled in a couple of blanks for me. But I am kind of, well, this technology has been around a lot longer than I personally have realised. So why has it taken so long to get to this point?
But that's what Craig always says, isn't it? He's often referring to the 90s, isn't he?
Yeah.
Sort of saying, oh no, we've done all this before, we've had it all before. But what was Craig's addition? Was it the Byzantine fault tolerance? I don't know, but he
kind of brought it all together, I think. I mean, the timestamp thing was part of it, but I think the network of mining computers was an addition to that idea, and several other aspects that it's by no means just a variation on the timestamping idea, and Scott and Stuart were not claiming that at all. But I did think you mentioned the newspaper, Diddy, and I did think it was amazing that they left that Belcore Labs and they started a commercial implementation of their idea, a company called Surety, where you could provide you could register any kind of document with a timestamp, and it all over a period of time, then you'd end up with a long string of numbers, which they would publish in the New York Times, so that you could see that it existed by that date of the New York Times. And what I thought was amazing is that it still happens to this day. Every edition of the Sunday New York Times still has that, update on their system. And so, I mean, that's really fascinating, I think, and was completely new to me.
It is amazing. I wonder whether it'll continue after they're gone. I mean, that's the thing about Craig's Bitcoin. The difference, I suppose, is being distributed. It will continue long after Craig.
I think the problem may be that there's no print edition of the New York Times for it to go into.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, the newspaper will disappear before the blockchain does.
Right.
For sure. Yeah.
What about Craig? Did you see his presentations, and what did you make of them?
I did. His teaching is, as always, about commodities this time, wasn't it? I think I tweeted, it's given us a semi-annual bollocking, and it does feel a bit like that. He comes on stage and he basically, rallies the troops and tells us all to work harder, which I appreciate. I think it's great, a great message, and that's the thing is no matter how far we've come, there's a hell of a lot further yet to go. So don't stop now. And I think in BSV you can complain about the price staying low and stuff, but it does at least have the effect of making it so that everybody has to be quite industrious and ingenious and keep working to increase, the value of their portfolio, rather than sort of sitting back on our laurels and saying, "Oh, numbers gone up," nothing more needed to be done, because that's what's leaving BTC behind in the dust. It's because there's no development happening, and they've really nothing to talk about at conferences. So, I'd rather have the Craig Wright approach of, a sort of a stern headmaster telling everybody to get back to work.
How would you review Craig's performance, did he?
I've seen hundreds and hundreds of hours worth of Craig's interviews, hundreds of them, and I still learn new things every time. So he still comes out with something new. But I absolutely love Craig to bits. With his brain, for me, is phenomenal, and I like his straight approach to things. There's no airs, there's no graces. It is what it is, and if I'm pissed off with you, I will tell you. And he's very straight down the line with everything, and I've never met anybody like that before, and so I have ultimate respect for him. But what surprises me is after all these hundreds of hours, there's still something new that I haven't heard before that he comes out with. And I just think he's such a great leader who actually probably didn't realize that he was going to be a leader. Does that, so ultimate respect for Craig, and I hope that people listen to him.
I mean, he's fighting a lot of different battles at the same time, isn't he? I mean, and Ruth, you say he sort of gives everyone a ticking off, but a lot of the ticking off is to people in the world of BTC and other parts of this business, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, certainly the passion is always there. And do you think? But he's. I mean, what about the way he explains things? I mean, I think one of the issues about CoinGeek Conference is who is it for? I mean, who is the audience? Do you think how much should it be focused on people within the world of BSV, and how much should it be looking beyond that, do you think?
This is very, very difficult line to walk, isn't it? And there's a quote that says, ideally, things should make no sense until they make the right sense. If you think about that for a minute. And I think that Craig suffers with this problem. I think for most people in BTC and the other cryptos, he sounds like he's talking gibberish, because for them, this is a whole subject area lexicon that they're not familiar with. They've been watching too much Max Kaiser, too much Michael Saylor, and they have no idea what Bitcoin really is. And so when Craig talks, it just sounds like nonsense, because they don't.
The brain.
They don't have the map with which to navigate.
But does that mean that? I mean, that in a way that is a good thing, I suppose, in the sense that there's a way of understanding it. But does it also mean that BSV is a rather kind of closed, almost cultish world where you need to be in it to understand it, really? That's not a good thing, presumably.
It's definitely a problem. There aren't very easy ways to solve it, I don't think.
I don't see it as a cult. I just see it as that people have a lot to learn. And you're only going to learn if you take the time to actually learn. And a lot of people, as you say, they've got this very black and white idea of number go up, and if number doesn't go up, then it's not working. And that's not what Bitcoin is about, from my perspective, because I saw everything about where the ideas came from and what the fundamentals are for the reason it exists in the first place. And I think if people actually did their homework properly and actually learned why it came about as well in the first place, then I think they might have a better understanding. But to actually I've been trying to teach my parents about Bitcoin for ages, and finally it's sinking in, but it's been like 4 years of me just talking about Bitcoin every single day before it's like, oh, ears prick up, and it's like, oh, okay, this makes sense now, because, and I think it's been suppressed quite a lot by mainstream media as well, or taken the wrong way again, with the BTC rhetoric of number go up. And I think that just blinds people from actually looking at the technology itself and what the technology does. It's all about, let's make a quick buck. I'm not that kind of person myself.
But Diddy, after 4 years of talking to your parents about Bitcoin, do they open the door and say, "Oh, great to see you, Diddy. Now, tell me more about Bitcoin"?
No. However, my mum will look at her hand cash every now and again and go, "Oh, okay." I managed to get my mum on hand cash, which was a big step. So I'm trying to teach her step by step how to learn.
But I think, Charles, it's the 80-20 rule. Like, there's probably only 20% of the population who are ever going to get it. And so what we need to do, if that, it's a damn sight less than that in a minute. But I think what we've just got to do is build the apps that knock down all the barriers to entry, like Pearsend is doing. And as Craig often says, it's the plumbing. You're not supposed to know it's there. You're not supposed to care what is branded. You're not supposed to understand it. When people watch the television, 99% of them don't understand how a television works, and nor do they need to.
We were starting this conversation talking about Pearsend, and what a great onboarding mechanism that is going to be. Well, I'm pretty sure that if you are involved with a sort of invitation from Pearsend to receive some money, the example that Jeff gave was, here's $5 or something, and then you go to your hand cash wallet. I don't think you even need to really know that it's got anything to do with Bitcoin. So in that sense, it does do exactly what you were saying, Ruth, is that it's just in the background.
And as Handcash has got the apps that you can use it in right there and then they're built into the wallet, absolutely.
Because people didn't have to go around and explain to their parents what the internet was.
No.
They just said, if you've got a lot of junk in the attic, there's this thing called eBay, and you may want to find out about this because you could turn it into some money, for instance.
Or if people just wanted to talk to each other online or send emails or have video calls. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, I thought that Bitcoin phone was probably going to be quite a big...
Yeah,
Well, just one thing about the conference I wanted to ask you. You're both founders of the Women of BSV group. I wondered whether what you thought about the lack of women appearing at the conference, and whether your group is in some sense a kind of campaigning group to get more women into BSV.
I wouldn't say a campaigning group exactly. I think it's more just trying to provide marketing and education and entertainment just with a different slant that has more appeal to women, because a lot of it's quite dry, a lot of it's quite academic, and we're trying to provide a bit of light relief really, and in a more sort of chatty way, and find out about the people as well. We're quite interested in the people themselves, the entrepreneurs. So we're asking sort of slightly different questions and having a bit of fun with it. I think from my perspective, I don't want it to be too serious. We're not an oppressed minority. We're not in any way sidelined. It's not that at all. We're just enjoying it and giving a slightly alternative take on the space, and a bit of colour and joy, hopefully.
Yeah, there are certain applications that we know about that don't get covered as well, obviously, by CoinGeek, because I suppose because we're quite a social element as well, we see different apps that are out there, and a lot of artists and musicians and everything as well. So it's just a different take on that enterprise side of things as well.
Do you think that women could be better represented both at the CoinGeek conferences and on the website and so on, other things that CoinGeek does, if we looked harder for contributors who are women?
I don't know. It's a bit of a chicken and egg.
Well,
I think.
Talking to Rachel, though, I mean,
we turn up
from BSV World. I mean, she's a developer, and she was saying, there is a lack of female developers. So I think they get, taken up by big corporations very quickly. So, but I suppose maybe that's something that maybe a call out for more female developers as well might be something that could bring more females in.
I'd like to say as well, I'm a graphic designer, UX designer myself, and when I look at things like Jack Pitt's Slictionary, I kind of think we need a bit more in the way of female UX design here. These things could benefit from having, So I think there are contributions that you'll find more often women working in that side of things. That perhaps they could use that more. I'm
sure Jack Pitts would be delighted to have any suggestions about the design of Slictionary.
He's the ultimate businessman. I mean, he's got a fantastic pitch. I love his product. But at the same time, though, a graphic designer looking at it wouldn't hurt, frankly. I'm being quite rude there, but never mind. He'll have to just take it on the chin.
I have actually contributed to Slictionary. I made my first contribution the other day.
Did you?
What was the word?
Frequency.
Oh
wow.
Interesting.
As in a sound frequency.
Well, that's what your master's was about.
Yeah, that was sound.
Because I mean, both of you are extremely technically minded. I've sort of seen your own videos and where you have gone into interviewed each other and your colleagues in the Women of BSV, and you both have a lot of technical skills, actually. So, I mean, why are you not rolling up your sleeves and starting your own BSV startup?
We will. Give us a chance.
Yeah, we're getting there.
We will. I mean, we need some hardcore coders on board, is really what it boils down to. I can do HTML and JavaScript, but when you get into, the real nitty gritty back end, I need some help. So
yeah, and I as I said, I was theatre and TV, so production management and lighting and sound and music are kind of my real, go-to and art. So I did do HTML, I did do learn C+ coding, but it's not something, I will admit, it's not something I overly enjoy sitting there coding all the time. So I will avoid that as much as possible, to be fair. But I like the creative side of things more. So that's kind of where, I think my strengths are in that respect.
Having seen one of your videos, I'm never going to be able to forget, Diddy, your 6 years organising Santa's Grotto in Nottingham, where you played the part of Snowdrop the Elf.
Yeah,
I mean, that is definitely something for any good CV to have on it, I think.
I just really like to make Christmas a very magical time for the children. I'm quite traditional. I did 16 pantomimes as well, so I worked on 16 pantomimes. So I enjoyed being Snowdrop the Elf, but yeah, it's one of
Diddy's basically done everything. If you sit and talk to her for long enough.
You've done a lot of things as well, Ruth, I know, because you've sort of combined entrepreneurship with technical skills, because you were quite early on in offering your services, making websites for people, I think, before the time when everyone had a website.
Mid-90s, yeah. I decided to go self-employed pretty early on because I'm not great at working for people, is the truth. I don't tell anyone. So I became self-employed as a web designer in about 96, I think it was. So it's a long, long time ago now. But yeah, I've always loved technology. I still love technology. I always like the latest things. I want to know about them. I'm kind of a voracious reader, and so you'll always find me kind of at the cutting edge of things, being an early adopter. But that's just that's my thing. I've got rheumatoid arthritis. I don't walk and move very well, unfortunately. So for me, the whole concept of the metaverse and making everything more accessible and making it digitized is actually great for me. I wouldn't say it's great for everybody, but for me, it is. It sort of broadens my horizons in a big way. So I'm all for it.
Well, look, thank you both so much for talking to me today. If people want to find out more about Women of BSV, or if they might even want to put themselves forward as a member, what should they do?
Find us on Twitter, and we'll welcome you with open arms.
Consider their application
as well. Yeah, sorry.
And if you've got ELF qualifications, you'll be right in there straight away, I expect.
I have a few ideas of what I'd like to do around that kind of thing within BSV. So we'll have to see what happens, because I do have a few ideas, but I'm a bit loath to tell people at the moment, because every time I put an idea out there, a couple of weeks later somebody's nicked the idea.
Well, okay. I think we should reserve a spot for you at the next CoinGeek conference, and you can reveal all at that point. So thank you both so much. It's been great talking to you.
And you, Charles. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks very much to Diddy Weldon and Ruth Heisman. On the show next week, I'll be talking to Jeff Beck, the man behind PeerSend, one of the new products that impressed Diddy and Ruth so much. I'll be asking Jeff how PeerSend will let people buy from Amazon, and about all the other amazing stuff he showed at the conference. Thanks very much for listening, and do please join me again next week for another CoinGeek conversation.